Hi friends, thank you so much for tuning in today. My name is Colby Sharp. I'm a 5th grade teacher in Michigan, and today I'm going to share with you all of the books that my 5th graders are currently reading. Are you ready? Let's go. We've been spending a lot of time this week, the week before winter break, getting ready to have 2 weeks away from school, making sure we have the books we need, talking about the obstacles that might get in the way of our reading. And I'm really excited to see how amazing they do reading these next couple of weeks. The books I'm going to share with you now are the books that they're currently reading. For most of them, these are the books that they will start winter break reading with. Up first, Applesauce Weather. I have not read this book, and I haven't had a ton of kids reading it, so I'm excited. Maybe this becomes the next popular book in our classroom. I'm excited for this wonderful girl to book talk it when she's done reading that. Next up is a Goosebumps book on R.L. Stine. Always popular, always a kid reading this in one of my 2 classes. Super popular series as well, Sisters. The kids are super excited for our next graphic novel memoir coming out in 2019. Guts, they're dying to read that. Next up, the last 5th grade at Emerson Elementary by Laura Chauvin. Probably one of the most popular novel in verses in my class. A bunch of kids have read this book this year, probably 7 or 8 of the 25 in my morning class have read it. Just one of those things, man. One kid reads it, book talks it, another kid reads it, and the momentum just carries the class into so many kids reading it. Great book. If you haven't read it, read this book. This is a Hometown Hunters book. The series is written by Lane Walker. I believe he's a Michigan educator, maybe even a principal, but it's hunting. I know that a lot of you probably have kids who are obsessed with hunting or hunters themselves or family members that are hunting. This is a great 4-book series. This one is called The Hunt for Scarface. I have not read them, but the kids are super into them. One of my students last year read all of them and then donated them to the class. I think then we got another set. So thankful for these Hometown Hunters books. Frindle. I wonder what percentage of schools and classrooms in this country have a copy of Frindle. I bet it's high. I bet it's one of the most. Like besides like Beverly Cleary and Roald Dahl and Judy Blume, like I bet this might be one of the most like schools have this book of just about any book. Frindle, just a classic. Next up is a graphic novel, Star Scouts by Mike Lawrence. I have not read this, but many of my students have. Star Scouts. Next up, a book you may have heard of. It's probably sold like 6 or 7 million copies, or I don't know, millions. Wonder by Palacio. There's still kids who haven't read it, and they're still reading it, and they're rereading it, and rereading it, and rereading it. Dogman, another series that is super popular. Kids are dying for the next one to come out. We don't count down days in here until winter break. We count down days in here until the new Dogman comes out. We're all super stoked about that. I hope a lot of my students get to read the new one over break. Next up is Lawn Boy by Gary Paulson. The kid reading this is loving it. He was telling me all about it. They read it aloud in 4th grade. So I read it, and it was super fun. It's cool to read the books that your kids are really liking that you haven't read, even if you read a lot of books. Definitely try to always be influenced by the most important readers in your life, which are your students. Unless you have your own kids, then it's probably them. Max Einstein by James Patterson and Chris Grabenstein. This one's starting to get popular. I haven't read it, but it's starting to pick up some momentum. Has had some multiple readers. The ones who read it have loved it. Next up, National Book Award finalist Mason Buttle by Leslie Connor. This one's also picking up a lot of steam. A lot of kids are starting to give this one a whirl. A kid who just finished it loved it. He was just like, oh, so good, were his words when he finished it. Next up, If This Were a Story. I read this book, loved it, book talked it. 5 or 6 kids in class have read it. A beautiful, beautiful middle grade novel. Next up is Holes, which I need to make a video about Holes. I think it's the best book ever written for this age. And I'm reading it aloud, and so many of my students have found a copy somewhere in the world and finished it, which I kind of love. Like I kind of love that they want to read it so bad that they won't wait for me. With this classroom copy, the kid brings it up and says, Mr. Sharp, it's falling apart. I'm like, yeah, there's still words in there. You can keep reading it. So I'm gonna have to replace that. We have a kid starting the Harry Potter series. Super fun. I think there's another Harry Potter in here. Maybe, oh yeah, another kid reading, the first one. We had one of my students this morning finished the book 7, which I think is the last book in the series. He was pretty excited about that. Saving Winslow, probably the most popular middle grade novel in our class this year by Sharon Creech. Gotta love this donkey. Such a great book. Blended. This is awesome. It's so fun right at the part of the year where so many of the books being read are books that other students in their class read it. So yes, we book talk every single day. Kids are always like just amongst their friends reading and talking and discussing books. Blended. If you're thinking, man, I only have time to read 1 or 2 more 2018 books, read Sharon Draper's Blended. It's amazing. Elephant Secret. I'm like a broken record. Bunch of kids read it, they book talked it, they loved it, and now we have new kids crying. One girl was so, and it's got early crying. Like a lot of books, you have like the late crying, like towards the end. But this has early crying, much like the one in Only Ivan, which also has an elephant. Early crying in this book. We prepared lots of Kleenex. I said Holes is my favorite. It's like the best. This is another one, top 5 all time for me, Because of Winn-Dixie by Kate DiCamillo. Love a student is reading it. I believe it's a kid that I had in 3rd grade. No, it's not. I read this book to my student. I taught 3rd grade a couple years ago, and now I'm in 5th. And the kids that are in here that had me in 3rd grade read this one aloud. But I'm glad a new reader is getting a chance to meet Opal in Winn-Dixie. And The Preacher, another dog man. The Button War by Avi. Have not read this one, but it's always fun to check out new books by Newbery medalist. Big Nate, a book from our school library, kids reading. Seems pretty excited about that. I have not read Isabella for Real. It's illustrated by Leywin Pham, written by Margie Palatini. It's got a YouTube feel to it. You can kind of see there the YouTube. I don't know, got videos here. The kid who's watching it or reading it is a huge YouTube fan. He's on page like 10. I was talking to him about it this morning. So he's gonna finish it over break and let me know if it's any good. Princess Pulverizer, fun chapter book series here, kid reading. Tom's Midnight Garden by Edith. I have not read this. It's beautiful though. Whew, this is exhausting. And one final book, a book that my own personal daughter is reading. It's a book that I finished last night. The Remarkable Journey of Coyote Sunrise. This book, friends, is phenomenal. It will blow your mind. There's crying parts all over the place, like buckets, ugly crying parts. It's so good. You have to meet Coyote and Rodeo and Ivan, her cat. Oh, it's a great book. We're reading in my afternoon class Dan's book, The Honest Truth. He can tell a story. I'm going to do a whole video on this book, so I don't want to talk too much about this book. Anyways, these are the books that my students are reading. I hope that your students are reading wonderful books. I hope that they're ready for winter break to read lots then. Let me know down in the comments below, what are your students reading? What are they reading over break? I can't wait to find out. I can't wait to add to my to-read list. Have an awesome day. Happy reading.